Good morning, St. Francis, and good morning, people of God. It is Friday, the 12th day of August, 2022, Friday of the 19th week of the year, the 19th week in Ordinary Time, coming to you once again from our shrine to St. Ignatius of Loyola, honoring the first pastor, Father Jim English of St. Francis of Assisi Parish. Again, it's the area that is right by the berm that's right by Leesville Road, right over here. Even though the traffic goes by Leesville Road like this, it's a very calming and peaceful sort of place. It just needs to be cleaned up a little bit, like I keep saying every time I come over here. But it is a nice day. Holy Mother Clare brought moderating temperatures yesterday, so it was not as hot as it has been, and she has continued that blessing upon us today. So it is kind of a nice day. It's a little bit cloudy. It may rain, I don't know, but the blue skies are trying to come through. So on this Friday of the 19th week of the year, we continue again with Ezekiel, and we move into chapter 17. So we're jumping all over the book of the prophet Ezekiel, and chapter 16 begins what has been known in biblical scholarship as the blue chapters of Ezekiel, because this is where God speaking to Ezekiel and then Ezekiel speaking to Israel is kind of laying waste Israel's pride and its sense of itself as a chosen people. It's sort of, God is trying to tear them down, saying that they really were nothing, and that they were the products of the most hated people of their time, and they were born because they were born, and they were not wanted by their families and left to die. And it's God who kind of saw them, but then they grow up to be harlots, and again, it's the feminine imagery for Israel, and again they become dishonorable and not listen to God's covenant and terrible people, etc., etc. But then God is going to fix all of that. But it is this kind of tearing down, this lambasting, whatever you want to call it, of Israel that God does in kind of very graphic, kind of quasi-sexual language, and in many collections of scripture, even when they were translated into the vernacular, these chapters were kept in Latin, so that those who did not know Latin could not read them, because they are so blue in one way. So it's always something to think about. We will continue a little bit more tomorrow. We continue, so we don't have mass here at St. Francis, but we'll see if I think it picks up on Monday. But again, the whole idea of God needing to tear down Israel's pride, needing to tear down what Israel thinks of itself, because it is headed towards destruction. Again, Ezekiel is speaking both prior to the destruction of the temple by the Babylonians, and then after the destruction that occurs. And Israel not listening, and Israel not wanting to obey, come back to God, and listen to what it is that God has to say. But yet God is ever faithful. God does not give up on Israel. But again, this tough love, this hard love that needs to be expressed, that Israel knows, that it has messed up its life, and that it needs to come back to who it is meant to be, what it is meant to be. This reading is paired with that famous reading from Matthew. It's repeated in the other synoptics, Mark and Luke, but not as strongly in Matthew, about divorce and what divorce is, and then remarrying after you divorce, you commit adultery, and that's a sin, and that's breaking the commandment, etc., etc. And again, the sense in which this it always needs to be couched in a greater understanding. And a greater understanding that finds itself in negativity, because the greater understanding is found in Peter's response to what Jesus is saying, that no one should get married, And that has to strike us as an odd response to all of this, in the sense that Peter is expecting men to divorce their wives for something better all the time, because wives are a commodity. They are just one product after another that you keep on the shelf, and after it passes its due date, you get rid of it and find another one. And that is what Jesus is trying to counter. It is this lack of affection, lack of love, lack of any kind of establishment of a bond, and that the heartbreak that happens, the sadness that happens, especially between two people, again, who said that they loved each other once and now could be at each other's throats because that love has died and that love has left. Again, expecting basically men to move on for what is better all the time, and forget what it is that they have is not emblematic of God's understanding. Because if God were to act that way to us, which God could easily do, and God, again, connecting this sort of with the first reading from Ezekiel, God could find something perhaps better, but God doesn't. God tries to remain faithful. God tries to heal. God tries to mend what is fallen apart and what is lost. And in many ways, that is expected of us. It never means to stay in a relationship that is deadly, that is that is life ending, that allows for no hope, no peace. But it does mean for us to remember what it means to love, and to never give up on love, even when we think that it has failed us once. It never fails us in the end. God is true to that, and God constantly reinforces that, and that is what is supposed to give us hope. And may the Lord give you his peace.